and gentlemen, but at the same time, while claiming to protect Jewry, the Bible is outlawed from the school, even from the school library, which includes, ladies and gentlemen, the Torah. So in the guise of defending Jewry against Christianity, Jews also are prohibited from taking their holy book into school, having it in school, or reading it in the school library. Also from saying prayers. It protects no one. It takes away the right to practice the religion of your choice for all of us, every single one of us. Jew, Gentile, the followers of the Prophet Muhammad, Buddhists, those who follow the Shinto way, Taoism, it doesn't matter. Quote, "The horrible consequences of an officially sponsored religion can be seen in the Crusades and in one of the darkest periods in Jewish history, the Spanish Inquisition. ADL works to ensure a strict separation of church and state so as to protect minority religions. Judaism is a central concern for the League," end quote. Now children saying a prayer in school or carrying a copy of their own personal religious book, whatever it may be, are now compared to the Spanish Inquisition. You see how things are twisted, ladies and gentlemen? But the ADL's hostility, rather than being directed against Christianity, is actually directed against the entirety of all of the Judeo-Christian traditions, including Jews, especially Orthodox Jews. It's demonstrated when the ADL filed amicus briefs to ban display of the Ten Commandments in the classroom in cases paralleling the school prayer issue. Perhaps the most ironic case, given the ADL's claims to represent Jewish interests, was its stand in the 1980 Ten Commandments case, Stone versus Graham, where the plaintiffs challenged a Kentucky statute which required the posting of the Ten Commandments in each school classroom. The ADL ended up fighting a small print statement after the last commandment, which read, listen to this, folks, this is what they thought, quote, "The secular application of the Ten Commandments is clearly seen in its adoption as the fundamental legal code of Western civilization and the common law of the United States," end quote. And this is something that should be taught in every single class which teaches Western civilization, because it is absolutely true. In November 1980, the ADL agreed with the Supreme Court's decision that this was unconstitutional. And 4, Christmas carols, hymns, and spirituals, nearly all of these song forms, which are a most efficient prophylactic to protect children from the horrors of the rock, drug, sex counterculture, and are a bridge to classical music, have been all but banned with the agreement of the ADL from public schools. One recent case, Flory versus Sioux Falls School District, 49-5, grew out of a 1978 school board policy which allowed the singing of Christmas carols, the performance of religious plays, and the display of religious symbols in Sioux Falls public schools. Although the ADL filed amicus briefs at the level of the 8th United States Circuit Court of Appeals and with the Supreme Court, the latter refused to hear the case, thereby affirming the decision of the appeals court that such actions were constitutional, much to the dismay of the Anti-Defamation League. And 5, Equal Access Act. Another decision that drew cries of alarm from both the ADL and the New Age Southern jurisdiction that the wall was being lowered involved the EAA. In a June 4, 1990 press release, the ADL said, quote, "The Supreme Court decision today upholding the Equal Access Amendment erodes the wall separating church and state," end quote. The case, Board of Education of Westside Community Schools versus Mergens, involved the efforts of a student, Bridget C. Mergens, to have equal access to school facilities for a Christian Bible study club. According to the ADL release, quote, the court held that student-sponsored religious clubs in public high schools do not violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, end quote. And of course they don't. In its amicus brief, the ADL argued that the EAA was unconstitutional since it involves the public schools promoting religious activities impermissible from the standpoint of the cult dogma underlying the wall of separation opinion of Justice Hugo Black. In its 1991 ADL in the Court's pamphlet, the ADL describes its amicus brief as having argued the following, quote, the brief contended that both the legislative history of the EAA and the language of the statute itself reveal its impermissible religious purpose. The EAA arose following several unsuccessful legislative and constitutional initiatives to promote religion in public schools. When these efforts failed, Congress adopted the free speech analysis from Widmar versus Vincent, 454, United States Supreme Court Decision 263, 1983. Characterizing student religious activity as a protected form of free expression. End quote. What particularly disturbed the ADL was that by granting Christian clubs equal access to school facilities, where there was an open forum for the debate of often competing ideas, the Supreme Court, in upholding the EAA, had somehow given undue emphasis to the free speech clause of the First Amendment over the Establishment Clause interpretation of Justice Black. Dangerous in the viewpoint of the ADL. 5. Religious symbols. As a result of adjudication since the Everson decision, it has become unconstitutional for schools and governments to celebrate Christmas or other Christian holidays with a display of such religious symbols as crosses, nativity scenes, or depictions of Jesus. Instead, what must be substituted are Santa Claus, reindeer, and Christmas trees, which are of a secular nature and tend to substitute the material aspect of gifts rather than the religious significance of the founding of Christianity with the birth of Christ. Of course, we all know that Christ was not born on Christmas, as Christianity seems to think, but in a completely different part of the year altogether. And we all know that Santa Claus, reindeer, and Christmas trees are not of a secular nature, but are part of an old, pagan, European religion. The ADL has participated in a number of such cases. Among the recent ones described in this 1991 ADL in the Court's pamphlet is Doe versus Small, 934F, 2nd, 743, 7th Circuit, 1991. Quote, at issue in this case was the constitutionality of a public park display of numerous large paintings depicting scenes from the life of Jesus Christ, end quote. The ADL wrote an amicus brief in this case from Ottawa, Illinois, saying that the local government's assistance to the JCs in preparing the annual display, including the use of public land, violated the wall of separation. Writes the ADL, quote, the brief contended that the city is not merely acknowledging or celebrating Christmas, but that it is instead supporting Christianity, end quote. Yet in the case of American Jewish Congress versus City of Beverly Hills, case number CB 90-6521, when the American Jewish Congress filed suit against the Lubavitchers for erecting a menorah to celebrate Hanukkah on public property, the Anti-Defamation League worked out a compromise whereby the menorah could be displayed along with a large Christmas tree on land that did not face public buildings. 5. Banning the Bible. On June 29, 1992, the Supreme Court let stand a ruling in the case of Kenneth Roberts versus Kathleen Madigan and Adams County School District number 50. That the Constitution prohibits an elementary public school teacher from silently reading the Bible to himself while his students read secular books. The court declined to review a decision of the 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that Kenneth Roberts, a 5th grade public school teacher teaching in a suburb of Denver, violated the Constitution by reading the Bible to himself during the classroom's silent reading period. End quote. Now I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, why would anyone care what someone reads silently to themselves during a period when there is absolutely nothing for them to do except wait for the student